The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed under the light of 3 distant stars. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a bizarre tapestry of galactic life. Some breathed methane, others required anti-gravity fields just to exist in the space. But today, all eyes were focused on the center platform where High Commander Crothes of the Vraxian Empire stood. Crothes was an imposing figure, even by galactic standards. His reptilian body stretched nearly 3 meters tall, covered in crimson scales that had been hardened by countless battles. His golden eyes swept across the chamber with barely concealed contempt. Behind him, a holographic display showed the disputed territories in the outer rim, highlighted in aggressive red. "Esteemed council members," Crothes began, his voice a deep rumble that echoed through the chamber. "For 3,000 years, the Vraxian Empire has maintained order in the galaxy. We have conquered 47 systems. We have never known defeat. Our honor is without question." Ambassador Thelix, an elderly Zenthari with pale blue skin and too many arms, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He had a bad feeling about where this was going. "The species called humanity," Crothes continued, practically spitting the word, "has violated our territorial boundaries. They have established colonies in regions that rightfully belong to the Vraxian Empire. They are weak, soft creatures with no natural defenses. They have been traveling space for barely 200 years. They are children playing at being explorers." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Several ambassadors exchanged worried glances. The Krellic representative actually got up and left, muttering something about needing to update his government immediately. "Therefore," Crothes declared, raising his clawed hand high, "the Vraxian Empire formally declares war upon the human species. We will teach them their place in this galaxy. We will show them what happens when lesser species challenge their betters. This war will be short, decisive, and serve as a lesson to all who would question Vraxian supremacy." The chamber erupted in chaos. Half the species present began arguing at once in dozens of different languages. Thelix stood up, his multiple hands raised for attention. "High Commander Crothes, please reconsider," Thelix pleaded, his voice strained. "You do not understand what you are doing. Humanity is not like other species. They are nothing." Crothes roared. "Look at them. No claws, no armor, no venom, no natural weapons of any kind. They live on a single world with gravity so crushing it would cripple most species. They are weak and isolated. This will barely qualify as a conflict." At the far end of the chamber, in a simple seat without decoration, sat Ambassador Sarah Chin. She was a small woman by human standards, perhaps 160 centimeters tall, wearing a plain gray uniform. She had been silent throughout Crothes' entire speech, her face completely neutral. Now, every eye in the chamber turned to her. "Ambassador Chin," the council speaker said carefully, "does humanity have a response to this declaration?" Sarah Chin stood slowly. She was tiny compared to Crothes, barely reaching his chest even at his full height. But something in her eyes made several ambassadors unconsciously lean back in their seats. There was something ancient there, something primal that transcended size and strength. "Yes," she said quietly, her voice carrying clearly through the now silent chamber. "We accept your declaration of war, High Commander Crothes." She paused, letting those words sink in. Then she smiled, but it was not a pleasant smile. It was the smile of a predator that had just spotted prey. "May your gods have mercy on you," she continued, her voice still soft but somehow chilling. "Because we won't." She sat back down without another word. The chamber remained silent for several long seconds. Thelix buried his face in several of his hands simultaneously. The Mantral ambassador began updating her will on her personal device. Crothes stood there, confused by the reactions around him. He would understand soon enough. They all would. The war had begun. Commander Crothes stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Talon, watching the mining colony of New Perth grow larger on the viewscreen. Behind him, 199 other Vraxian warships waited in perfect formation. This would be easy. This would be glorious. 200 warships against a colony of 50,000 miners, his second-in-command noted with satisfaction. "They will surrender within the hour. Send the standard demand," Crothes ordered. "Unconditional surrender or total destruction." The communications officer worked quickly, then looked up with confusion. "Sir, they have responded." "Already? Good. Prepare to accept their—" "They said no, sir." Crothes blinked his golden eyes slowly. "What?" "They refused to surrender." The message was very short. It just says, Come and take it. Something cold crawled up Crothy's spine, but he pushed it away. Then we will take it. Begin the assault. The first wave of Vraxian troops landed in the colony's main settlement. What happened next would haunt Crothy's for the rest of his life. The humans did not run. They did not hide. They fought. Miners wielding industrial cutting torches turned them on Vraxian soldiers. Drilling equipment became weapons. Women and men fought side by side with a ferocity that shocked the battle-hardened Vraxians. Even the colony's teenagers picked up weapons and defended their homes. They are everywhere, a ground commander shouted through the communication system. They are in the tunnels, in the buildings, behind every corner. They do not stop. 3 days into the battle, Crothy's received a report that made his blood run cold. One human, a young woman barely into adulthood, had been shot twice and still managed to destroy a Vraxian transport vehicle with a homemade explosive. She had smiled as she did it. On day 7, the humans rigged an entire section of the colony's fusion reactor to explode, taking out 2 Vraxian ships that had landed too close. 40,000 Vraxian soldiers died in an instant. They are insane, his second-in-command screamed. They destroyed their own power source. They killed their own people in that explosion. What kind of species does this? Crothy's had no answer. The battle continued for 16 days. 16 days of brutal, savage fighting. The humans used tactics that violated every rule of civilized warfare. They fought at night when Vraxian vision was poor. They went without sleep for days, using chemical stimulants to keep fighting. They set traps that were cruel and inventive. They never, ever surrendered. When it finally ended, Crothy's walked through the ruins of New Perth. Bodies lay everywhere, human and Vraxian alike. The air smelled of smoke and death. Of the 50,000 humans who had lived here, fewer than 2,000 remained alive. But those 2,000 had killed 40,000 Vraxian soldiers. In the medical facility that the Vraxians had set up, Crothy's found a human soldier. The man had lost his left arm and had 3 bullet wounds in his chest. He should have been dead, but somehow he was still conscious. Even now, restrained to the medical bed, he was trying to break free to continue fighting. Why? Crothy's asked in the human language. Why did you not surrender? You could have lived. Your people could have lived. The human smiled through bloody teeth. Because you don't understand us. You thought we were weak. You thought we would be easy. He coughed, blood spattering his lips. You wanted a war. Now you're going to get one. And we have 300 billion more where I came from. We will never stop. We will never surrender. We will fight until every last one of us is dead or every last one of you is. The man died moments later, still smiling. Crothy's returned to his flagship. They had won the battle, but he felt no victory. 47 ships destroyed. 23 more so damaged they had to be abandoned. 40,000 dead. All to conquer one small mining colony. And there were hundreds more human colonies. For the first time in his long military career, Commander Crothy's felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. 6 months had passed since New Perth, and Commander Crothy stared at the holographic map in disbelief. Red markers showed Vraxian losses. There were so many red markers now that the map looked like it was bleeding. Another fleet destroyed at Titan Station, his intelligence officer reported. The humans used some kind of automated drone ships. Thousands of them. They just kept coming wave after wave until our ships ran out of ammunition. Crothy slumped in his command chair. How many ships did we lose? 32, sir. The humans lost approximately 500 drones, but... The officer hesitated. Sir, our scouts report they are building more. Much more. Every human world has converted to military production. They are building warships faster than we can destroy them. It was impossible. No species could mobilize that quickly. But the humans were doing it. Across the galaxy, Ambassador Thelix sat in the council chambers, presenting his latest report on the war. The other species listened in horrified fascination. Humanity has transformed entirely, Thelix explained, his multiple hands gesturing at data displays. Every factory now builds weapons. Every shipyard produces warships. Their entire civilization has become a war machine. And they are doing it with an efficiency we have never seen. But how? Asked the Mantral ambassador. War is expensive. War is exhausting. How can they sustain this? Thelix pulled up biological data on humans. Because they are built for it. Humans evolved as pursuit predators on a death world called Earth. They can function on 4 hours of sleep. They can survive on minimal food for weeks. They can endure environmental conditions that would kill most of us. And most importantly, they simply do not give up. On the battlefield, A young Vraxian general named Thex was learning this truth firsthand. His forces had surrounded a human military base on a frozen moon. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. Victory should have been certain. It was not. The humans fought for 11 days straight in temperatures that froze Vraxian blood. They ate ration bars that tasted like compressed cardboard. They slept in shifts, never more than 2 hours at a time. And they fought with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. They are like a pack of predators, Thex reported to Crothes. When one falls, another takes their place instantly. They cover each other's weaknesses. They share their ammunition, their food, their equipment. I have never seen such unit cohesion. It is as if they share one mind. The battle ended when the humans launched a counterattack that should have been impossible. Exhausted, outnumbered, low on supplies, they somehow found the strength to push the Vraxians back. Thex barely escaped with his life. But what truly terrified the Vraxians was humanity's creativity in warfare. They used tactics that the galaxy had deemed too cruel or too insane. They dropped tungsten rods from orbit, creating explosions without using bombs. They built AI-controlled weapons that hunted Vraxian ships through asteroid fields. They even developed biological agents that specifically targeted Vraxian physiology, causing paralysis and pain. This is barbaric. Crothes protested to the Galactic Council. They are violating the rules of civilized warfare. Ambassador Chin stood to respond, her face cold. You declared war on U.S. Commander? You wanted to see how humans fight. Now you know. We fight to win. We fight to survive. And we use every advantage we have. The worst report came from General Thex 3 weeks later. His voice shook as he transmitted his message. Commander Crothes, I must tell you something. In my last battle I saw something that broke my spirit. A human soldier, wounded and surrounded, detonated an explosive device, killing himself and 12 of my warriors. But before he died he smiled. He actually smiled. Thex paused and Crothes could hear the fear in his voice. Sir, they don't fight like they want to win. They fight like they want us extinct. Every human is a weapon. Every human is willing to die. How do we fight an enemy that has no fear of death? Crothes had no answer. The war that was supposed to last days had stretched into months, and the Vraxian Empire was bleeding. 14 months after the declaration of war, the impossible happened. Human warships appeared in orbit above Vraxis Prime, the Vraxian homeworld. The planet that had stood unconquered for 3,000 years now had enemy ships blocking out its sun. Commander Crothes stood in what remained of the Vraxian Defense Command Center. Half the building had been destroyed by human orbital strikes. His scales, once bright crimson, had dulled to a sickly gray. He looked like he had aged 20 years in just over 1 year of war. How many ships? He asked quietly. Over 800, sir, his officer replied, voice trembling. And more are arriving every hour. They have completely surrounded the planet. Crothes closed his eyes. The mighty Vraxian Empire, conqueror of 47 systems, was about to fall to a species that had only learned to fly between stars 200 years ago. In the Galactic Council chambers, species from across the galaxy watched the events unfold on massive view screens. Some were horrified. Some were fascinated. None were surprised. Ambassador Thelix stood before the council, his aged face grave. I warned Commander Crothes. We all did. But he did not listen. Now I will explain what humanity truly is so that no other species makes this mistake. He activated a holographic display showing Earth, the human homeworld. It looked beautiful from space, blue and green and white. But the data told a different story. Earth is what we call a death world, Thelix explained. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is corrosive oxygen. The temperature swings wildly. The planet is covered in predators, diseases, parasites, and natural disasters. 99% of all species that ever lived on Earth went extinct. He paused, letting that sink in. But humans survived. More than survived. They became the dominant species. Do you know how? The Mantral ambassador leaned forward. How? They became the apex predator, Thelix said. On Earth, humans were not the strongest, not the fastest, not the most powerful. But they had one advantage that no other species could match. They could chase their prey for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They evolved to never give up. Ever. He changed the display to show human biology. Look at their bodies. They can regulate their temperature through sweating, allowing them to run in heat that would kill most animals. They have incredible endurance. They can heal from injuries that would be fatal to others. They can adapt to almost any environment. And their brains, their minds, are wired for problem-solving and cooperation. But surely, another ambassador protested, they must have limits? The only limit humanity has, Thelix said softly, is the limit they place on themselves. And in war they remove all limits. On Vraxis Prime, Crothes received an incoming transmission. It was Ambassador Chin, calling from one of the human flagships orbiting his world. Her face appeared on his screen, calm and cold. "Commander Crothes," she said. "Do you understand now?" Crothes felt something break inside him. "Why?" he asked, his voice cracking. "Why did no one tell us what you really are?" "They tried," Chin replied. "Ambassador Thelix tried. Others tried. You didn't listen. You looked at us and saw weakness. You saw creatures with no claws, no armor, no venom. You thought we would be easy to conquer." She leaned closer to the camera. "But every other species in this galaxy knows the truth. They befriended us not because they liked us but because they feared us. They feared what we could become if we were threatened. They feared the monster that lives inside every human." "We are not monsters," Crothes protested weakly. "No," Chin agreed. "You are warriors. You have honor and tradition and rules. You fight for glory." Her eyes hardened. "We are not warriors, Commander. We are survivors. And we will do absolutely anything to survive. We will sacrifice our own lives. We will destroy entire worlds. We will fight until the last human draws their last breath. That is what you declared war against." Crothes looked at the holographic display showing the human fleet above his world. 800 ships. Maybe 900 now. Each one capable of destroying his civilization. "You are going to kill us all," he whispered. Chen's expression didn't change. "That depends entirely on what you do next, Commander." The human fleet hung in the sky above Vraxis Prime like a sword waiting to fall. Inside the remains of the Vraxian Command Center, Commander Crothes stood before a communications console. His hands shook as he prepared to send the message that would end his empire. Around the galaxy, billions of beings watched and waited. The humans had the power to destroy Vraxis Prime completely. They could turn the entire planet into lifeless glass within hours. Everyone knew it. The only question was whether they would do it. Ambassador Chen's face appeared on Crothes' screen. Behind her, through the windows of her ship, he could see his beautiful homeworld. Cities that had stood for thousands of years. Oceans that held the memories of his ancestors. All of it could be gone with a single order from this small human woman. "I surrender," Crothes said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The Vraxian Empire surrenders unconditionally." Chin nodded slowly. "These are our terms. Complete disarmament of all Vraxian military forces. War reparations to be paid over the next 50 years. Integration into the Galactic Council under human supervision. Vraxian military leaders will stand trial for war crimes." Crothes expected the terms. He deserved them. But then Chin said something he did not expect. "However, there will be no genocide. No extinction. No destruction of Vraxian culture or people. You will be allowed to rebuild. You will be allowed to exist." Crothes looked up sharply. "What? You could destroy us. You have every right. We started this war. We killed millions of your people." Chin was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer. "Because we are not monsters, Commander Crothes. We can be monstrous when we need to be. You have seen what we are capable of when threatened. But we do not want to be destroyers. We never wanted this war. You forced it upon us." She stood up, and Crothes could see the weariness in her eyes. This war had cost humanity dearly too. "We would rather have the Vraxians as reluctant allies than extinct enemies," Chin continued. "We would rather build peace than create ruins. That is the difference between us, Commander. You fight for glory. We fight for survival. And now that we have survived, we choose mercy." Crothes felt something wet on his scales. He was crying, he realized. After everything he had done, after all the human lives he had taken, they were showing him mercy. "I do not deserve this," he whispered. "No," Chin agreed. "You do not. But your children do. Your people do. They did not start this war. You did." 1 year later, Crothes walked through the reconstructed streets of Vraxis Prime's capital city. Human engineers had helped rebuild what their weapons had destroyed. Human medical teams had treated Vraxian wounded. It was strange and humbling. He was no longer a commander. That title had been stripped from him. Now he was simply Crothes, an old warrior who had learned a terrible lesson. Ambassador Chin was visiting the planet for a diplomatic ceremony. The Galactic Council had officially recognized humanity as a Tier 1 military power and protector species. Other aggressive civilizations across the galaxy had taken note. No one wanted to be the next Vraxian Empire. Crothes found Chin in a memorial garden, standing before a wall inscribed with names. Human names. Soldiers who had died in the war. Ambassador Chin, he said quietly. May I ask you a question? She turned to face him. Of course. How did humans become so deadly? What made your species this way? Chin looked at the memorial wall at all those names. On Earth we were not the strongest species. We were not the fastest or most powerful. Everything on our planet tried to kill us. Predators, diseases, whether even the plants were poisonous. Most species would have gone extinct. She turned back to Crothes. But humans did not go extinct. We adapted. We endured. We became the dominant species not because we were the best at anything, but because we were the most stubborn. When everything tried to kill us, we simply refused to die. She paused, choosing her words carefully. When you declared war, Commander, you did not just fight our military. You fought 200,000 years of evolutionary stubbornness. You fought a species that survived ice ages, plagues, and countless disasters. You fought a species whose greatest weapon is not technology or numbers. It is our absolute refusal to ever give up. Crothes finally understood. Humanity's deadliest trait was not their strength or their intelligence. It was their inability to accept defeat. I am glad we are no longer enemies, he said quietly. Chin smiled, and this time it was genuine. So are we, Crothes. So are we.